This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. This was not the video that I had intended to make. I've got this Fender Pro Reverb from 1965. I think quite an incredible amp. I love the way it sounds, and I wanted to do a video on what I think might be one of Fender's more underrated amplifiers in the world. And then this happened. And then yet, you know, you go to record something with a tube amp and things take longer than they should. Not only that, but you can hear, obviously it sounds like I'm recording this through a vinyl record player, because there's something wrong with this amp, even though it's just come back from being repaired. So basically this is now just thrown off the whole of what I was going to do, workflow wise. And this is part of the reason, as much as I love the sound of this thing, and I love the sound of many of these things, when it comes to actually getting some work done, it's getting worse, isn't it? The modeler is going to be the way to go, right, for me, especially now that, because this has taken some time, LED is going to bed, so I can't continue making as much noise as this thing makes. However, like, I have to say, there's something glorious about it, right? So you, the idea was that I was going to record a clean intro. You know, and if I wanted to use the reverb on this, this is the other thing that I kind of knew had come back not fixed, but it's got a lovely reverb on it, it should have. However, sometimes it's going to do something really nasty and noisy. I've got blues breaker here that I could kick on. You know, in the room, certainly to me, sounds more inspiring than a modeler ever would be. But equally, you know, I can't record sensibly whilst it sounds like someone's doing whatever they're doing in my amp. If anyone knows what it is that's making it do that, let me know in the comments and I can try and get someone to repair it. Anyway, I think this is, for me, why I feel like at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to see a real tipping point where the modeling world, the plugin world, I think we're probably more or less, you know, pretty much at this stage anyway, where the only real people kind of debating this are people on YouTube videos, where it's going to make more sense, you know, to have modelers around than it is to have tube amps. Now, I think many people in the world have to do both. Many people in the world are used to experimenting with both. There are some people who are very much wedded to the idea that it has to have valves in it. And then there are some people that have maybe never even played one. And that's cool. I do still think there is a magic in these amps though, you know, certain types of amp anyway, like an old Fender amplifier or just a Fender amplifier in general, the clean tones you get from them, there's nothing really quite like actually just plugging into one and playing one. And that's the thing, the inspiration part, which is maybe why I keep some of these things around. I was chatting to David Beebe last night because I was quite frustrated when they kind of hinder a creative process, then it's even kind of worse. And I said, because he's recently-ish bought a few kind of nice amps, like a Deluxe Reverb, a Morgan AC20 and a Friedman BE100. And I said, have you ever recorded with an amp? And he said, yes, with a Victory amp before I got the Fractal stuff. So I said, well, you know, so what are the actual tube amps that you have for? He said, playing loud and for pure indulgence. And I guess that's kind of where it's starting to be now, because to me it's sort of like we're choosing between riding a horse and driving a car, but when you get to the destination, people are like, why have you brought a horse? So it feels like when you take an amp to some gigs, or suggest taking an amp to some gigs, certainly on certain gigs that I've done, the idea has been, you know, that we're trying to go direct to in-ears, no amps on stage, that sort of thing. And it does feel a bit strange as well, so not having a bass amp on stage and stuff like that. I don't prefer it, but in terms of convenience, in terms of, you know, being able to cart a thing around, so this is probably too heavy for me to get down the stairs, let alone to a gig. Then also, one other aspect, of course, these things keep breaking on me for some reason, even though I'm not using them very much, and like the volume doesn't get past 3. I don't know if there's a decent amp tech around me that could actually do a job on this, and I think that's another key factor, because I've got 2 amplifiers here, one with a broken switch, micro switch, and one now that's doing all sorts of funny sounds, as you've heard. So that 2 out of the 3 valve amps that I've got have eventually run into some issues and I don't know who around me might be able to fix it. So if you've got suggestions for amp techs in my local area, I'd love to hear them. And this has just come back from an amp tech, so it's a bit of a frustrating thing. The other thing is that if I really love this tone, which I kind of did, as soon as I move the amplifier and I move the microphone, there's some aspect of it which is no longer repeatable. Same with the knobs and stuff, unless you're quite meticulous about measuring stuff like that. So if I had captured that with a quad cortex or a Kemper, my quad cortex also broke, so modelers break too apparently, just gear breaks. I could probably get a tone that was closer to that than if I tried to, with this amplifier, record again, right? There is definitely something magical about playing an amp in the room still, especially, you know, if it's a Fender type clean, there's really nothing that beats it. That's another thing I kind of think that amps, we need to keep them around for, is to kind of check for what we like. So if I recorded that tone, then I'm like, well, what am I actually liking about that when I record it? And then I can jump into Helix Native and tweak and sort of try and get a little bit closer. One thing that I really notice is that this maintains dynamics in a way, not dynamics even, but when you're playing soft, more of that is coming through, whereas in Helix Native, some of the like little bits of the legato lines started to kind of die away. It's almost like the amplifier is a bit more compressed in some ways, although this has a huge amount of headroom, so I'm not sure if it is that, but that's kind of the feel of the thing. So when you're playing quietly with a loud amp, generally I find that what I do is I play a little bit quieter and with a bit more touch than if I'm playing straight into a modeler, is what I found. So I think there are definitely still reasons to have these things around, but it's the stage now where it's kind of, for me, I've got 2 amps here that need work done on them, and I don't have someone locally. And I think the people that do these sorts of things tend to be like TV repair guys and stuff like that. And is anyone really getting TVs repaired anymore? It's like a bit of a thing where eventually we're going to have these old amplifiers that maybe there's only a few people that can actually do the work on them safely and get them working, because obviously this has just been with someone and for whatever reason they've not managed it. So it's a bit of a, does this then become a paperweight, an incredibly heavy paperweight? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments if you've got any. Is it inevitable? It might be. Also, I was using the Helix Native for one of those solos. I'll drop that preset into the folder. But when I treated them both the same, like put them through a little bit of a compression, side compression, because it's, you know, quite a clean tone, I did find that I was really enjoying the Helix tone too, but playing the actual amp is obviously just more inspiring, but maybe a luxury.